What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about some recent attacks, if we're going to call it that. We will discuss that as this video goes on Hogwarts Legacy. It has relatively stopped. It's been a while since I talked about these topics. Got to kind of wet my whistle, even though I can't whistle, and I'm going to get back into it. So what I want to talk about is two different things. Now, I first noticed this with the talk of the player count dropping. Okay, I want to start there because I had seen this article floating around. There's actually several sites writing about it, of Hogwarts's the player count dropping like off a cliff. And I mean, yes, that is true, but it's also very expected. And granted, and I will say, that's why I say attacks in like air quotes, I don't know if you want to call it an attack. I think it's kind of it's more of like a sneaky thing where these sites are like, well, we kind of lost. The game kind of came out. The game did better than really anybody imagined. I think even the people, including myself, that years ago talked about how well it was going to do. I don't think we ever threw around the units sold that is actually happening. The game is the biggest success it possibly could have been, okay? For better or worse of the actual game quality, you know, we've talked about some of the problems I have with it, some of the great things about it, but regardless of the actual quality of it, the game, it didn't work, this cancellation attempt. And so we've talked about this before. Some sites have taken a more intellectual approach to attacking where it's kind of been more sneaky. It's been more, okay, you're not outright calling the people that play this game the worst people on planet Earth. You tried that and it didn't work. So what you're going to do now is kind of go after like odd things. That was, I don't remember if it was IGN or some site about the whole killing, that it's weird that you can kill people in Hogwarts. Remember that? And I had talked about that and said, you know, maybe it's true. I mean, maybe you agree with it, maybe you don't, but it's just a weird way of looking at it. And you can tell that this person doesn't like the game, but you can't just tell these millions of people that they're all evil, although you've tried. Instead, you're going to kind of say, well, isn't it kind of odd you can like eliminate people in this game? Isn't that weird, guys? Do you feel weird? And that's what we had. So what we have today is two different stories. One of the player count dropping. Now, what this is, I mean, the player count's actually still very high. I haven't checked it since the game came out, right? When it was breaking all these records of like single player. The game's in its genre and its type. This game, again, did better than I think any of us could have imagined. It has dropped. I mean, I think the peak maybe was in the 800,000s, right? So you say 850,000 or so people all time at one time were playing the game. Now it's around 95,000, and you're seeing sites saying it's I don't think catastrophic, but collapse. You're seeing a lot of titles that say like a player count collapse of Hogwarts Legacy, and it's like, all right, again, I don't know if you want to call it attack. Maybe I'm so pessimistic online, at least in regards to these Hogwarts Legacy things, that I view it as an attack. I do think it's a weird thing because the obvious response is to say no duh. And again, like when you read the articles, which sadly I did, the articles themselves say it, where, you know, it starts it out, the title, player count collapsing. The article will, you know, it starts with, oh, you know, it was in the 800,000s, now it's 95. Look at the huge drop it's had. And then the next paragraph will say, now, it's not uncommon for a single-player, action RPG or whatever. It's not uncommon for games like this to fall off a cliff, considering once you play it, you're kind of done. And the game does most of its sales, or at least when all of these people are playing it, let's say, it does it in the beginning. You know, it's very rare, it's specifically very rare for a single-player game to have random, gigantic, like Cyberpunk has had it, but it's been helped out by other things, to have spikes that are actually ahead of what it originally had. It's insanely rare, right? So it's just odd these sites kind of putting it together where it's like, yes, it did. I mean, I guess it's not like clickbaity. It's not a factually incorrect statement. The game has fallen. You know, it's gone from 800 to say 100,000. That is quite the fall, but it's been a month. And people have played it. People have beaten it, which we'll talk about actually as part 2 to this video. You know, all that stuff has happened. It's sold. Maybe when the PS4, Xbox One version comes out, maybe that reinvigorates some people to, I guess, play it on Steam. It's important to remember it's only the Steam count, right? It's only people that are logged in, tracked in that way. PlayStation, I'm not saying like the PlayStation count is still just as high. I'm sure everything has fallen off, but it's not uncommon. Every game does that. So to make a big deal out of it, which is what they're doing for Hogwarts when every game does it, is ridiculous. So I had first spotted that, okay? That was the first. I just want to kind of pat myself on the back because the second story Troy, our good friend Troy, he actually quote tweeted it. He really took GameSpot to task. I really like that. But it's kind of the same general idea. So what we have here is a GameSpot tweet that talks about how the metrics, right, show that 25% of players have beaten Hogwarts Legacy. And again, I really think that's the exact same thing. So when I saw that article and I saw Troy quote tweet it, I said, okay, it is a strategy, right? Maybe my thing on the player count, maybe that's me being too antagonistic, and maybe it is, but I also feel better about it. Maybe it's me being too antagonistic towards this, these weird articles that are coming out about Hogwarts. But these two articles are very, very similar. Do you know what I mean? They're both like a negative. Like only a quarter percent of players that played Hogwarts actually beat it. You're throwing that out there as kind of a negative thing. But here's the kicker. Now, Troy does a great job of saying this. He compares it to like The Witcher. Witcher has an incredibly low percentage of people that have played it. All these open world games. Go look at your favorite open world game that's long, and you tell me how many people have beaten it. The stats are low. But also, I didn't actually need Troy to do that, because I could tell you, based off of what I've already seen in the gaming industry, we've talked about this. There's history. There's past videos to back me up. It is documented quite well that gamers don't beat games. Highly. I mean, it's a huge thing. Look it up. You'll find it immediately. And that's around the stat. That 20 to 30, maybe 40%. Even a game like Uncharted, say like an 8 to 10 hour game, the amount of people that beat it is far below half. It's just the way that it is. People buy these games, they play it for maybe half the time, they play it maybe for like a third of the time, and they do not finish it. It's a whole argument thing. It goes into the conversation of, well, are games too long? But then you have games that are like 8 hours long that not even half the people beat. So what are you supposed to do? Make a 30-minute game? People's attention spans are terrible, and they're never going to do it. It's just the way that it is, right? Or maybe they don't like the game, or they get distracted with, oh, here's an idea, life. Like, there's all sorts of things that could happen. You know what I mean? But this is a thing that's very easily, like, you can find it very easily. It's talked about all over the place. So again, it's the same. Now, I like Troy's response because he's saying, you're going after Hogwarts. So let me throw out there some of the most, these are games that are extremely well liked, both from fans, both from critics, right? You all like these games. And let's talk about how little people beat those games. Again, it's the same argument, I would say, as the player count. It's like a non-thing. It's not something you even talk about, because much like the player count, of course, a month after a game that's this size and a game that's this kind of game, a month later, of course the player count is going to collapse. Do you go on YouTube? Do you look at social media engagement? Things pick up and then they completely fall off. It's literally how it works. So that's not news. You're framing it as news, but we all know what you're doing. You're going after the game. It's the only thing you have left, I guess, right? You completely lost. You all embarrassed yourselves massively, and then the game comes out. So the only thing to talk about now is, I guess, oh, not too many people beat it. Also, not too many people are playing it now. Well, also, I guess if you look into that, 95,000 people playing concurrently right now, a month later, is still better than most games get, period. Like the first day, first week. 95,000 is better than most of those games. It's easily in the top percentile. So that's still a horrible, it's still a horrible argument, because the game, even if it launched at this, I'd still consider it kind of, now, it would be much less of a success, but it would still be successful. And then you have the trophy thing. That is definitely not an argument. And I really, I think, again, it's a conversation starter. It's something to talk about. Why don't people play through games? And I guess you can give examples. But again, in context, I think if you just look at it the way that they're designing it, you got to remember, this came from GameSpot. You guys know GameSpot, right? They despise this game. A lot of people that work there absolutely hate, they hate me, they hate us, they hate the game. We know this. It's not a secret or anything. So when they do a tweet like this, you think they're doing like actual journalism? You think they're creating a conversation to talk about why don't people play through games all the way? That is a conversation. That is something that, again, has been talked about for years and years and years, because it's readily known from any game developer that most people, the majority, do not finish your game. They buy it, and most do not ping that trophy, that achievement, saying you completed it. But by the way, 25% of however many, 10, 15, 20 million people is still actually more people that beat Hogwarts than, again, beat most of the games. And I like what Troy does because he's like, well, let's look at games that you respect. The Witcher 3, a game I have beaten, right? A legendary game, a game that's oftentimes looked at that if you're going to copy something in an open world RPG, that's the game you copy. Less than 30%, less than 30% of this game that sold extremely well. And even that game, people don't beat it. And it's not because of the quality. That's the thing. It's going after the quality. You're going after Hogwarts and saying, well, look, people didn't beat it. And the sad thing is, now there's only like a couple, and when I say a couple, I mean like 2 or 3 or 4. There's only a couple comments that actually think like that. In fact, if you click on that GameSpot tweet, you will see some people saying, see, I told you, people just bought this to go against the cancel call. Like people, and it was siding with the GameSpots, right? People were just buying the game in spite of these people telling you not to buy it. They weren't actually playing it. That's not true. Now, I do think that's true maybe to an extent. I think maybe what do you want to say? 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people maybe bought an extra copy or a game all on its own to spite the people that put your names on lists to harass you on Twitch. These great individuals, these people that are just the saints of the earth. They bought it in spite of them. I don't actually see anything wrong with that per se, but also that's such a small number. It's such a small number. So the percentage of people that beat the game is not connected. It does not correlate in any way to to that kind of mindset. And I think that's the mindset GameSpot's going for, right? Again, they lost, they were embarrassed, all this stuff. And so they're saying, well, this incredible game, this game that everybody was so excited for, yeah, I mean, it's sold like better than anybody could have possibly imagined. But guess what? Here's the real kicker. People didn't beat it. Ha! I gotcha. I finally gotcha after 3 years of trying. Well, the response is, no, you didn't get anybody, because this is a common thing. This happens every time. Pick that writer's favorite game. I guarantee you it's under 50%. Guaranteed. Because games don't do it. It's just not a thing. It's sad. It's actually kind of annoying because it's like, why'd you got Hogwarts Legacy? I would agree with that. 75% of people don't beat the game. That's odd. I mean, I think that's worth saying, but to single out Hogwarts, we all know what they're doing. It's pathetic. But I mean, they've tried this before. They've tried much worse than this before. It's never worked. They've been embarrassed. They've been discredited. The industry has moved away from these people. I mean, what more did you expect them to do, right? Did you expect them to suddenly figure it out? Probably not. Let me know what you think. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.